The Shadow in Blueberry Woods. Part 1. The disappearance of Emma Hilton, Clatsop County, Oregon. Deep in the remote wilderness lies a forest the locals call Blueberry Woods. In the fall of 1997, a 12-year-old girl named Emma Hilton vanished there. She had gone berry picking with her parents and wandered just a few steps off the trail. But in mere moments, she was gone. Search parties combed the forest for days. Nothing. No footprints, no signs of struggle, just silence. Old-timers from the nearby town of Astoria whispered about an ancient evil, a witch who supposedly lived deep in the forest, in a crooked little house that stood on chicken legs. Some claimed they'd heard her singing at night. Others swore they'd seen a shadow with no source, drifting between the trees under the full moon. The police closed the case after a year. There was no body, only a single carving on the tree where Emma was last seen, a crude figure, hooded with a blank face. People stopped talking about Blueberry Woods after that. Part 2. The Return. 25 years later, in 2022, 4 childhood friends from Portland decided to take a weekend trip to a remote cabin deep in the woods near Astoria. The cabin belonged to one of them, a hunting lodge left to him by his grandfather, sitting just on the edge of Blueberry Woods. The friends were Jake Mitchell, charismatic, cynical, 33 years old; Ashley Carter, energetic nature photographer, 31; Tyler Brooks, quiet, tech-savvy, 32; Rachel Summers, an aspiring horror writer, 30. They arrived on a chilly Friday night, roasted marshmallows, told campfire stories, and of course the story of Emma Hilton came up. Rachel perked up immediately. The legend says the witch comes for children whose names are spoken aloud at night. If you speak the child's name in the dark, she hears it, Jake scoffed. Let me guess. She cooks them in a stew? No, Rachel replied seriously. She takes their shadows. The bodies stay, but the souls are gone. Just empty shells. Everyone chuckled, except for Tyler. What's wrong? Ashley asked. Tyler hesitated. I came here with my grandpa once years ago. He told me never to go into that forest. Said there were eyes that weren't human in there, that he saw a girl once, one with no shadow. The fire crackled. No one laughed. Part 3. The House in the Trees. The next morning, they went for a hike. Ashley wanted forest photos, Rachel wanted inspiration. About 2 miles in, they left the trail and stumbled across something strange. A house. Not ruins, not a shack. A real standing house. Roof intact. Glass windows. A heavy wooden door covered in bizarre carvings. The air around it was unnaturally silent. No birds, no insects. This isn't on the map, Jake muttered. It's not supposed to be, Rachel whispered. It's not part of our world, but it's in the story. She stepped forward. The air smelled like smoke and honey. The door creaked open. Inside it was dark. Children's drawings lined the walls. The faces were scribbled out in black crayon. On the floor were dozens of little shoes, mismatched, dusty, and on a tiny table sat an old film camera. Rachel froze. Ashley picked it up, brushing off dust. Wait, Tyler whispered. That's Emma Hilton's camera. They took it and left in a rush. Halfway back, Rachel suddenly stopped cold. Where's Jake? He was gone. No sound, no struggle, just vanished. A soft whisper floated through the leaves. Ashley started to call his name, but Tyler grabbed her arm. Don't say it! Don't say his name! Silence. Even Rachel looked terrified now. She remembered the rule. Speak the name at night, and she'll find them. Part 4. The Film. Back at the cabin, the three remaining friends developed the film. Tyler had brought a small darkroom kit. A couple hours later, the photos began to emerge, one by one. A little girl with empty eyes standing alone in the woods. A photo of all four of them, taken in the forest, though no one remembered taking it. Then Jake, standing in the dark near the same house. Behind him, a tall figure, dressed in black, face like scorched bark, limbs far too long, fingers curved like claws. The final frame was all black. But if you looked closely, deep in the corner, you could see a smile. That night, no one slept. By dawn, Ashley was gone. The front door was open. One of her boots lay on the porch, covered in ash. From the trees came faint laughter. Part 5. The Witch. Tyler broke. He began rambling about how they'd angered her, that the camera belonged to the witch now. That house was a trap, something outside of time. She lured in those who thought they didn't believe. They decided to go back and return the camera, just Tyler and Rachel. When they reached the house, it had changed. The door was gone. The walls breathed slowly, like lungs. The air stank of decay. Inside sat a girl, silent, face blank, like carved wood. Rachel placed the camera gently on the floor. The moment she let go, the house slammed shut. Tyler ran, but from the darkness, something pulled him back. He screamed once and was gone. Rachel barely escaped. She ran through the woods blindly until she reached the road. A week later, she was found wandering the highway, barefoot, in shock. She wouldn't speak, only scribbled one thing over and over. Don't speak their names. They're in the forest now. No shadows. The witch isn't a person. She's the dark itself. She doesn't need a body. She's in every whisper, every name spoken in the night. Rachel disappeared from her psychiatric ward in 2024. On the wall of her cell, they found one final message scratched in with her fingernails. Ashpath. A true Appalachian horror story. Part 1, A Passing Sin. Deep in the Appalachian Mountains near Bedford, Virginia, there's an old hunting trail no one uses anymore. Locals call it Ashpath. Legend says that if you walk it during a full moon, the ground starts to breathe, and the trees whisper names not your own. In the 1800s, a woman named Sibylla Brown lived near the trail. She was a recluse. Some said she healed people with herbs. Others said she cursed their crops. When 3 children went missing, the town blamed her. They dragged her into her cabin, locked the doors, and set it on fire. Her final words were not screams. Witnesses claimed she smiled and whispered, "I forgive none of you." After her death, strange things began to happen on the trail. People went missing, cameras malfunctioned, and ashes would appear on untouched soil. The legend says Sibylla's soul never left. She became one with the trail, punishing anyone who walked it with guilt in their heart. Because the witch doesn't hear your footsteps. She hears your lies. Part 2. The Expedition. In 2023, 4 university students from Virginia Tech began filming a YouTube documentary titled Myths of the Mountains. They were looking for forgotten folklore, and Ashpath was perfect. The crew. Lucas Evans, the director, 24, ambitious and skeptical. Hannah Moore, the cinematographer, 22, sarcastic but sharp. Brandon Hale, the researcher, 25, religious and methodical. Sophie Reyes, sound tech, 23, intuitive and sensitive. They camped near an old abandoned church just 2 miles from the trail. That evening, a local pastor came by and gave them a warning. If you're going there, confess, out loud. Even if you don't believe in God, she does. Lucas rolled his eyes and laughed it off. The others stayed quiet. Part 3. The first warning. The first day was uneventful. The forest was too quiet, not even bird song, just wind and leaves that sounded hollow. That night, the group reviewed their footage. Out of 20 minutes, only 5 were usable. The rest was distorted, glitching, colorless. One frame showed a figure between the trees, just for a second. A woman in black, skin covered in ash. Sophie felt sick to her stomach. She said it felt like something was sitting on her chest. At 3 a.m., Brandon woke up to soft weeping. He peeked out of the tent and saw a girl standing at the tree line. Her body was coated in ash. Her face was blank. She didn't move, just stared. When he blinked, she was gone. He didn't tell the others. Part 4. The burnt house. No matter which direction they walked, they ended up back at the ruins. Trees shifted subtly. Shadows followed them. Then they heard her voice, not from a speaker or from the wind, but inside their heads. "You lied, Hannah." Everyone froze. "You said you didn't believe, but you do. You just hide it." Sophie screamed. A woman stepped from behind the trees. Her body was cracked and blackened, like burnt bark. Ash fell from her like snow. Her eyes glowed white, but she didn't walk. She glided, completely silent. Part 5. Reckoning. They ran. Lucas grabbed the camera and kept filming. Trees closed in around them, bending unnaturally, as if alive. Her voice followed them. One lied. One hid. One turned away. Only one tried to pray. Brandon fell. The ground beneath him opened like a mouth, swallowing him whole. No scream, just silence. Lucas, Sophie, and Hannah kept running, until the trail looped again. Back to the ruins. Back to the doll. Back to her. Branches moved like arms. Blackened hands reached from the dirt. Sophie dropped to her knees and began whispering a prayer, but the witch was already there. "Too late," she said softly. Hannah clung to Lucas. That's when he started laughing. "It's perfect," he said. "Real horror, real reactions. This is gonna go viral." Then the witch spoke one last time. "You came to film me, not to fear me." Lucas vanished mid-step, camera and all, as if burned into air. Only Sophie remained. Epilogue. A week later, hikers found a scorched video camera deep in the woods. It was partially melted, but one file was intact. The footage showed Sophie, sitting alone in a clearing, dirt smeared on her face, mumbling, "She's not a witch, not anymore. She's what happens when lies rot too long. She doesn't kill, she cleanses. We lied, to ourselves, to each other, to God, and she came to burn the truth out of us." Behind her, in the final frame, an ash-covered hand slowly reaches out toward her shoulder. Then the screen cuts to black. None of the students were ever found. The ash path remains, and the legend warns, if you walk her trail with lies in your heart, she will walk behind you until you speak the truth, or burn with it. Risen Time 16. The Weeping Witch of Raven Hill, a chilling American horror story. Part 1. The Hill's Curse. Deep in rural Oregon, near the forgotten town of Raven Hill, there's a forest that locals refuse to speak about. The trees are choked with moss, and the fog never lifts, even in daylight. It's always gray, always still. An old legend tells of a woman named Eleanor Grimsby, who lived there in the 1850s, a recluse some called a healer, others a child thief. One day, 3 children vanished. The town blamed Eleanor. They dragged her to a crooked tree in the woods, tied a rope, and hanged her. Her last words weren't pleas, but a cold whisper, "You didn't hear their cries, but I still do." Since then, people have claimed to hear weeping in the woods, not screaming, not howling, but gentle, endless crying, like someone mourning something they can never get back. They say her ghost is trapped, searching for children, or anyone who refuses to listen. Part 2. The Filmmakers. In 2024, 5 young filmmakers from Portland set out to shoot a short horror film based on real legends. Meet the crew. Ethan Carter, 25, director and skeptic. Madison Cole, 23, writer, fascinated by folklore. Jake Adams, 26, cameraman, sarcastic realist. Tessa Morgan, 22, lead actress, highly intuitive. Dylan Brooks, 24, audio tech, jokester, but oddly spiritual. They found the Ravenhill legend on an obscure podcast and decided to film on location. With tents, cameras, drones, and lights, they planned to find the hanging tree, where Eleanor was executed. They wanted to spend one night in the woods to get real horror energy. They had no idea how real it would get. Part 3. The Silence That Suffocates. Right away, something was wrong. The forest was too quiet. No wind, no birds, just a static, unnatural stillness. By nightfall, the fog grew dense, not mist, but thick, suffocating. Dylan heard crying. He thought it was someone joking, but when he recorded it, the sound file contained only a glitching pulse, like static with a heartbeat. Tessa refused to sleep. She said she felt someone pacing around their tents. Jake laughed it off, until he found child-sized footprints all around them, but the footage showed nothing. Part 4. The Woman Appears. At around 2 a.m., the silence shattered. From the fog emerged a woman in 1800s clothing, her face hidden by filthy gray hair. She sobbed so hard it made them all freeze. "Where are they? Where are my babies?" Ethan, thinking it was a prank or method acting from a local, walked toward her. She vanished. He screamed and dropped to the ground. His ears bled. When he came to, he said he heard a voice inside. GPS said they were in the middle of a lake, yet they were deep in the woods. Later that day, Madison recorded what she thought was a child crying. When they played it back, it wasn't a child. It was her own voice as a little girl saying, "Please don't leave me, Mom." Her mother had died in a crash when Madison was 6, and those were her final words. Part 6. Judgment in Tears. That night, the weeping witch returned. She stood closer. Her hands were long, charred like burnt wood. Her face was pale but cracked, as if ash was falling from her skin. She didn't lunge. She didn't speak. She wept. Then the forest echoed with memories, not just sound, but feelings. Jake saw his little brother, the one who drowned when he looked away. Tessa heard her best friend's voice, the one she ignored during the final call before her suicide. Dylan began hearing his late grandmother's lullaby, the one he forgot after she passed. The witch didn't chase them. She made them listen. If someone ignored the pain, if they covered their ears, stepped closer. Part 7. The Last One. By sunrise, only Tessa remained. The last footage from their camera showed her sitting beneath the hanging tree, whispering to herself through tears, "She doesn't want to hurt us. She wants us to feel. She wants the crying to stop, but it won't. Because we don't listen. We record, we film, we watch, but we never feel." Final shot. A pale figure in gray stands behind Tessa, silent, head tilted, watching the camera. Then, fade to black. Epilogue. A week later, hikers found a muddy camera near the edge of Ravenhill Forest. It contained only one usable video: The Weeping Witch of Ravenhill. Found footage. Real?